Hi, this is Megan Jacks, and I want to walk you through how to make the Starburst topper to the challenge number 2 of the the July 2025 virtual crop from Creative Memories. So in the directions on the blog, and I'll have that linked in the description below, you are going to need to create some rectangles here, and they're going to cut those rectangles on the diagonal. So you need 3 rectangles that are 2.5 by 12, and you need 3 rectangles that are 1.5 inches by 6.5 inches. So I've cut these all out of one sheet of paper, and I did, as you can see here, when I cut my angles, I did do 2 the same and then 1 opposite. I will be using both sides of the same designer paper. If you want to use other colors, you can, you just need a total of 3 of each size. So you can mix and match, practice with some cardstock, scrap paper, anything like that to kind of get things figured out, but this should work. The next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to cut your, whatever you're going to be attaching this to, you're going to be cutting it with, or excuse me, you're going to cut down a piece of cardstock or whatever paper to 11.5 inches square. So I've done that. And then you want to score the directions. Tammy gives some good directions there to score it in the middle. And so you need to figure out where middle is for your 11.5 inch piece, and to find that, if you're going to use your cutting mat, or excuse me, if you're going to use your trimmer, you would need to cut that at 5.75 inches is going to be half. I don't know where my scoring blade went to, so I'm going to use my cutting mat. I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm going to use my multi-purpose tool. So let me grab those things here. I've already scored this one, so let me just score it again. I'm going to line this up in center it on my cutting mat. Centering a square is really easy on the 13 by 13 mat. You just find your 45-degree angle lines, line it up right there, and I've got this 11.5 inch square centered on here. I'm going to come in here, line my ruler up at 6 inches. And then I'll use the duller end of my multi-purpose tool to create a score line there. And you just want to get enough of a line. You can use a pencil line. In all reality, you're going to end up covering this up with stickers, other strips of paper to do that. But there's going to be a line here. I think I can actually just show you guys with the journal pen because I want you to see it. The other option you have here is you probably could go ahead and cut this paper in half if you really wanted to. It actually might be easier because of the way we put the strips together. I'm going to draw it with my journal pen so you guys can see that line. This is my the halfway point. I'm going to build my sunburst on the upper half. So I'll be building my sunburst up here. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your pieces that you've cut, your triangles, and you're going to arrange them on here. The biggest thing to note about this sunburst, in general, you want to keep your center point, or the vanishing point of your sunburst around over here on the right of center, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And then one of the things we want to do here is I want to find my starting piece, and I want to use, I know I want to start with the lighter paper, and I'm trying to find, oh, here it is. This piece has a little bit of a right angle to it. You can see here, it's one of my triangles that I cut, the smaller ones. That's going to be my starting piece. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just adhere that in place because I know that that is where I'm going to use it. I'm a little bit, oops, I put my adhesive on the wrong side of the paper. Get that cleaned up. Flip this over and put the adhesive on the correct side of the paper. You're probably going to end up using a little bit more repo adhesive on here than you might be used to, just from the standpoint you want to get those pieces to fall into place. Now, I would actually prefer my vanishing point to be a little bit more over in this direction, but the thing we have to remember is on the sketch, there's actually there's a journal box and some other embellishment details covering up. So if my vanishing point is just right around in this area, it's going to be good. We're going to cover up any loose ends with that journal box and the embellishment. So after you get your first piece in place, now you're going to come in alternating your pieces. And it is okay if you extend beyond the line. You'll be able to come back with scissors and clean that up. That is kind of where I was talking about. You could actually just cut this paper in half and put it together and then put them back both together on your background piece would be another tactic. But here you're going to play around with how far over you need that piece to go. And then you just kind of work your pieces into place. You are going to want to use some bigger ones and play around with it a little bit. The one thing to note is you don't need to have your rays be even. They actually get wider as they go out. Now, as you get kind of over here to the side, you can actually start bringing in some of your smaller pieces. Just remembering to alternate how this is going to look. And if you need to, you can move your pieces in and out, and you just play around with it until you get it the way you like it. And once you have it the way you like it, then you start adhering. So that looks pretty good. If I feel like I'm too tight anywhere, I can bring it in. But remember, I'm going to have a piece here that's going to cover up kind of this, I don't want to call it a hot mess, but a little bit of this hot mess right there. So I'm just going to start adhering things into place. I'm using Repo. That's going to be your saving grace on here. So definitely use your Repo adhesive. I'm not pushing real hard down there below my vanishing point or that center line that I put in place. I want to be able to lift those pieces out and trim them. I want to be able to lift it up and trim it off. Let's see here. I'm just playing around, and you'll just want to play around with how your pieces fit together. Grab some of the ones, you will have a couple extra pieces. There's 10 total rays on here, I guess you could say. And I am literally just throwing this together. Just put it on, and you're just kind of going to make it work. You need to just make some adjustments. You want to just make sure you're covering up your wanting to make sure you cover up the cardstock in the corner. You don't want that poking through at all. So that's pretty close. I maybe would prefer it to be a little bit more angled this direction. And some of that gets accomplished by maybe moving this piece in a little bit more, which then alters where this piece is. And you see how you can just make these adjustments, right? You move one piece, you got to move all the others. So it gets a little bit crazy. Just gonna pull them off to the side. I'm probably regret. Probably should have just called it good. Don't overthink it too much. Come in with a little bit of a narrower piece here, and that will maybe let me turn that corner a little bit more. I like that ending up. If I start with the white over there or the lighter color, I'm going to do the same over here, and I'm just bringing it back in pretty bold. I'm going to take up a lot of space. Okay, that looks good. Now, what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm just going to trim these off. Flush. And again, I will be able to cover up this kind of rougher edge with my with stickers. So if it's not perfect along there, don't worry about it. You're going to cover that all up. So there's that piece or that section. And then what I'll do is I will grab my 12-inch trimmer. I think it's a lot to fit in here. I'm going to have to chop this down with scissors first, and then I'll come clean it up with my trimmer. Get rid of some of the bulk, and then I'll be able to feed it into my trimmer. Got a little too crazy with my scissors. Just get that cleaned up so it's a little bit more up there. But you're starting to see how that sunburst, starburst goes in there. Come in here and trim it up. Start on one edge and you just work your way around. Oops, I cut it a little too short. I'm going just a little too fast here, so take your time. I'll need to tighten mine up a little bit. My square, I'm going to be a little short. But there's the sunburst. And then you can imagine if you come in with a mat, I'm just going to use a Post-it note to just kind of give you that vision of you can cover up a multitude of sins by using some decorative elements here, just like they do in this sketch. So if you're looking at yours and you're seeing not that perfect starburst, you're going to have the pieces that come across here that will give you that illusion. So you'll be able to get that all kind of figured out. So it's kind of fun, play around with it a little bit, but you just need those 3 2.5 by 12s and 3 1.5 by 6.5, and then cut them on the diagonal and then just work those in there, and that hopefully will get you what you need. Thanks so much for watching.